or to operate, right? So this is important of inventory control. And next, let's see about the type of the inventory models, right? We have two types of the inventory models. So when we try to study inventory control, we have two types of the inventory. First, we call the independent demand, and second, independent demand. We already mentioned it as about in this in the chapter of the OM class. If you still remember MRP or ERP. Independent demand is referred to the inventory that are ready to be sold, such as the end item or the finished good, right? But for dependent demand, this is about the components that we use to assemble the finished product or finished good, right? So we have two different inventory model. And repeat again, the one that we don't know is about the independent demand. But dependent demand we quite known very well if we can estimate the independent demand, right? For example, I might use 4 volt to build the screen of the computers. If I can estimate the number of screen of this computer, I can know for sure about how many volts that I'm gonna use. Okay, so the independent demands we quite know very well if we know about the independent demand. Right? And for the inventories, once again, as I told you at the beginnings, it's good everything such as raw material, part that you may order from your suppliers, or even though the product that is not finished yet but still in the process of the production, we call the work in process or work in progress. Right? It's not finished yet, but it's still in the process, in the operation. We also call it inventory. The finished good for sure is inventories or the item already, or even though the replacement part, tools, supplies, or direct and indirect equipment that you're going to use, we also call all of the inventories. And also good in transit to warehouse or the customer, it is all inventory. So that's why it costs a lot, because everything is, as your cost, right? You if you have too much, right, you're gonna pay a lot for that cost, right? And again, we would like to try to find the level of inventory that's very reasonable to use, right? For sure that we've concerned two things, right? The level of the customer service. This means that we still need to have the inventory to help operate, right, and serve for the customer, and at the same time we don't want to pay too much on the ordering or carrying cost, right, of inventory. And as I told you, right, the inventories also be one of the measurement of your abilities or company abilities about liquidities, right? Because inventory can tell, right, how well of your companies to have the liquidities performance. One the ratio or one index that we usually use to tell is about the inventory turnovers, right? Inventory turnover is about the ratio of average cost of goods sold to the average inventory investment. So if you have two, this turnover very high, which means that you have very good ability, right, to manage about the liquidities, and you have the very good ability to manage inventory. Because the turnover is high, it means that it still it stay in the warehouse just for a while, just very few time, and then it's gonna getting out, right, to the customer. So if quite fast to convert from inventory or the product to be the cash, right? So we prefer inventory turnover very high, right? But if you have very low inventory turnover, so it means that you are finished good, you finish to make the production and you store as the inventory in the warehouse, and it stay for a long time before it's converted to be the cash, because before it gonna deliver to the customer and getting cash from the customer. So it's not good because it means that you have the poor management of inventory. You have the some cost that you already pay, but you cannot convert it to be your money because you have it just only in the storage or in the warehouse, right? So after we see the importance of the inventory control and we know that what kind of the type of the inventories, next we need to understand that okay, in order to manage inventories, what kind of the things that we need to have the effective inventory management. So for sure that the first one, right, is quite important that we need a system that to keep track of inventory. So it means that if we want to manage quite very well of the inventory, you need to know, right, your inventory level. So it means that the system that can keep track of your inventories need to be quite good. And how would be the system that keep track of your inventory? So it depends on organization, right? If you pay too much on the system that keep track right the real time, so you're gonna have the advantage of very well what the level of inventory, but at the same time you pay too much about the cost of monitoring. But if you just checking or keep track just at the politically, so for example, every 4 months, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, something like that, not keep track real time, you're gonna pay less for the cost of that system, but you have a higher chance to getting the stock out. I will talk about this later in the next few slides. Okay, first one, we need the system to keep track of inventory because we want to know about the level of our inventory in the warehouse, right? How it's changed, so and what is how many that we have, know about the levels of that. And the second one of effective inventory management is that we need to have the very reliable forecast of the demand. So it's just like the way that you have to manage your capacity because we need information from the forecasting. So then we can know that how many part or how many inventory that we need to store in the warehouse or in the storage, right? So if the forecast of the demand is quite well or quite very reliable, it's gonna help a lot, right? And the third one is about the knowledge of lead time. It means that for sure that when you in some case inventory is not come from your production, but it's come from your making order because you are not produced by yourself, right? You make order from your supplier, and then you need to know about the lead time from each supplier. You need to estimate that lead time because if you have no idea about the lead time, you cannot manage or you cannot expect that when you're gonna make an order again or when you need to make an orders because we don't have any knowledge about the lead time. So we need lead time, right? We need to know about the information of lead time from the supplier. The fourth one is that the reasonable estimates of these costs, holding costs, ordering costs, and shortage costs. Holding costs, once again, is about the cost that you carry the inventory, right, in the storage or in your warehouse. Holding costs, sometimes we call it carrying cost, is about the same cost. This cost, for example, the holding cost, for example, you might refer to the cost of your rent, your warehouse, or the storage. The cost of security that you hire, right, to protect, right, the inventory in the storage. The cost is based on the damage of the part or inventory in the storage, right? If you store too much, right, in the warehouse, so it's have the possible that you're gonna have the damage cost, you're gonna have the perishable cost, you're gonna have the cost of qualities that can happen based on the bad qualities of inventories that's stored in the storage. So all of this we call holding or carrying costs. Okay. And the next cost of inventory is ordering cost. Ordering cost is cost that you make in orders. Yes, it's not just mean only the fax or telephone, but the main cost of ordering cost is about the shipping cost. When you make an order, it's gonna deliver to you. You need to pay like for the transportation, for the shipping cost. So all this we call ordering cost. Shortage cost is just like the stock out in the case that you don't have enough product or enough inventory provide to the customer. So then you might lose right about the future demand from the customer, or you might lose some commit in demand, committed demand that customer gonna have in the future. So it's just like the opportunity loss cost. Right? And the last one that we need for effective inventory management is about the classification system. A classification system, why we need it? Because inventory, we take the important not equally, right? But it depends on the how critical of that inventory. For example, in hospital, blood or those kind of the equipment, like it's might very important that we cannot lack of that. Why we need it in hand for every time that we operate, right? So the classification system can help us to know about the priorities or the critical of each inventory, right? Because some inventory we cannot allow it to shortage because we cannot operate or we cannot doing business. But some inventories, right, it's just like very less cost, and we can make an order when too much, right, and no need to concern much about the cost, right? So the important is quite different. So that's why we need a classification system. I will mention and talk about this later in the next topic, right? But we use it to classify the important or the critical of each inventory that is not equally but it's different based on the critical of inventories. Right? So then let's talk about the system that I mentioned, that we need the system to keep track of inventory or counting the number of inventory on hand in the storage or in the warehouse. We have two inventory counting system, right? As I told you, right? Periodic system is mean that you counting the item at periodic interval. So you are not real time or keep track real time in for every time period, but you just counting as a periodic interval. For example, every 3 weeks or every first week for each month, something like that. So in this case, the good thing of periodic system is that when you make the counting of the stock or inventory, let's say in your storage, if you can have if you know that okay, this part of this inventory is come from the same supplier, you can make an order at the same time. So then you can save the ordering cost, you can save the transportation cost. Because you make an order one time that including all the part, all the inventory that you order from the same supplier, the same vendor. So you make one order, then you can save the ordering cost. Right? And this is the advantage of periodic system. Right? But the periodic system have very high risk in the case of you're gonna have the stock out that might be happening. Because let's say that you make an order, you counting every first week for each month, right? So if you run out of that stock, you're gonna know when you reach the first week of the next month. But the stock or the refit might be run out of just third week of today of the current month. But you can know in the next 2 weeks because it's not the period or the interval that we're gonna counting yet, right? But the inventory is already run out. So you're gonna know later. So in this case, you're gonna have the very high risk to have the stock out cost that might be happening. So we have the advantage of ordering cost, but we have the disadvantage of the possible that you're gonna have the stock out cost. So in this case, you can see that the product system is appropriate to use when you counting the inventory or the part that is not have the too much variance, right? Just very stable, right? Or very predictable demand. If the demand of that part is not swing too much or it's not fluctuate too much, you can use predictive system because you can estimate or you can expect, right? And then you can keep counting the system and might not have the stock out happen. But if that inventory or the part has a very high, right, or volatilities or very high swing of the demand, right, and you're gonna use the predictive system to counting that inventory, you have the very high risk to have the stock out, because you have no idea that when it's gonna run out. But on the other hand, another system might be appropriate for that situation. We call the perpetual inventory system. In this system, it means that you can keep track when every change is going to happen to your inventory. So it's just like the monitor real time. So it's going to update every time that you have change within your inventory storage. So then you have very less chance to have the stock out. But disadvantage is you're going to pay cost too much because the system going to be very expensive because it's monitor real time, right? So it's appropriate in the case that you have the demand very swing or demand very fluctuate that you might think about the perpetual inventory system because we want to prevent the stock out cost. Another inventory counting system that we have in the past is called two-bin system. This is very old system, right? Two-bin system is quite very simple. It's just like you have two containers of your inventories that you're gonna use. And once you use the first one, right, then you make an order. And during the time that you're waiting for that order, you use from the second bin, something like that. So you have two bin. Using one bin and then you finish, right? You make an order. During the time that you're waiting that order, you're using the second bin. Okay, and then you're gonna use something like this. So we call two-bin system. So little point or the level that you're gonna make the order is when the first bin is empty, right? And another countings that we see a lot in every day is about using the barcodings. The barcoding is, all this, right? You need to use the reader, right, to read the information from the barcodes. Yes, it's quite cheap, right? When you try to counting, when you try to counting the information or counting the inventories using the barcode, right? And this is an advantage of barcode because it's cheap. Yeah. But the disadvantage of barcode is that you need to read it one by one. Just like when you go to the 7-Eleven, so it need to have the reader to text to read one by one of your stock or of your products. Also, they spend a lot of time. So that's why they're gonna have another system that we know all this about the RFID, right? Radio frequency identification. That you're gonna use things like the radio, right, signal to read all the part, all the inventory that you have attached with that part. And it's going to read all the information and show you on the screen of the computer. So it's same time of counting inventory. But the cost still expensive when you compare to the barcode because the tab that you attach to the part or to the product is still expensive. So it depends on your organization that which which method that you're gonna use. Okay. The next one is about key inventory terms. Right. We have lead time. Right. So once again, lead time is the time until between you making the order and then you receiving that orders. So long lead time is not good because you're waiting too long, right? And we prefer very short lead time, right? And holding and carrying cost I already mentioned, right? The cost that you carry the items, and ordering cost is cost that you make orders, right? Such as the shipping cost. Shortage cost is cost when you have the demand more than the supply, right? As a opportunity loss cost, right? Okay, that is all information for inventory control. Next, we will start to study each model. Right? Based on all the information, you can see that the decision that we need to make from the inventory control is we have two things. The first one is to find that okay how much that we're gonna make in orders from the supplier, and the second one is when that you're gonna make that orders. So we have two questions to answer: how much to order and when to orders. Right? And for sure that we try to keep the total cost of inventory minimum. And don't forget that the cost of inventory we have, holding or carrying cost, ordering cost, we have the shortage cost or something like that. We try to keep all that cost minimum, right? And sometimes we also have the cost of safety stock as well. In the case that you try to keep the inventory to use in the condition that uncertain, then we're gonna have the uncertainty demand we're gonna happen. So you save that inventory to serve for that situation, right? So, and some model or some authors of the textbook, they also include cost of the item to be the cost of inventory as well. So this is the depend on the textbook writers. The authors, some authors use the cost of item also to be the cost of inventory, but some authors ignore that because when we analyze the cost of item is not involved anymore. But so when you calculate the total cost, they will not include the cost of item. They think that the cost of item is another cost, not the cost of inventory. Okay, so I will show you later in the model. So we will start the first model. The first model is called Economic Order Quantity Model or EOQ model. This is very old model, right? And but it's still useful. Right? At least it's gonna use as a benchmark, right? To manage inventories. EOQ models is the model that can help us to understand and to answer the question how much to order the inventories. You need to understand that for EOQ model, it doesn't mean that inventories come from our production. EOQ model mean that inventories come from you make an order from your supplier, right? And then part or inventory that you order from supplier is gonna store in your store to be your inventory. That inventory is not come from your production, but come from your orders. So let's say that you're gonna doing your business or you're gonna do a service business. You need to order the some of the equipment or some of the products or those kind of things to help to operate your organization business, right? So you're gonna make that order from the supplier. That is the inventory. It's not come from your own production. So we have the assumption of the EOQ model. The first one is quite weird. That the assumption of EOQ model is that demand is known and constant, right? If you look at this first assumption, you might feel that okay, this is not the real one because normally demand is not known and it's not constant. But for this model, we assume that demand is known and constant, as well as the second one, the lead time. for this model, we assume that the lead time is known and constant, even though in the real world lead time is not known and not constant. Right. So that is just two things that might be not that show the same the real information. Right. But for this model, we still assume that. Right? We assume that demand and the lead time both are known and constant. Right? And also the receipt of the inventory is instantaneous. Right? That means that once you get in the inventory, your inventory level is increased immediately. So your inventory is not gradually increased, but it increased immediately, right, from your order received. And the quantity discount are not possible, so it means that we are ignore the case that you're getting the discount of orderings from the supplier. So we ignore the quantity discount. And the variable cost is only the ordering cost and carrying cost, right? And they also have the detail that if orders are placed at the right time, stock out and the shortage can be avoided completely. So this is the EOQ model. So I can explain you by using the graph of inventory levels. Right? This graph shows about the EOQ model. We have X and Y axis. If you look at the X axis, it refers to the times, time. And Y axis is about the inventory level. For sure that if you don't have any inventories, the lowest level of inventory you can have is equal to 0. Right? But for the EOQ model, since I said that it is not inventory that comes from your production, but it's come from you making the order and you getting the order to store at your inventory. So we have one thing from EOQ. It means that every time that you make an order, we're gonna order equally every time, and B less is to be equal to Q. So it means that we're gonna make the order equal to Q every time that you will make an order, and we try to find out what should be the quantity of the Q that's gonna make the total cost of inventory minimum. Right? So let's say that at first you don't have inventory, the inventory is 0. And then you make it orders equal to Q. When you receive it, inventory level is increasing equal to Q, right? And then when this time is going on, you have used that inventory to make the production or use it to in your business, something like that. So inventory is reduced, but it's constant, it's reduced. Up to some point, you make the orders, right? And then, for example, in this case, let's say this is we call a reorder point, right? Or the level of inventory that you can make orders. When you have Q, and when there's something going on, inventory is reducing, and when it's reached to this point, you order, right? And then when you order, you're waiting equal to lead time, right? Equal to T lead time. And when it's reached to T, then you get back the order equal to Q again. Right? And you can see since we assume that demand is known and constant, so the slope of inventory level that we reduce from time to time is equally, right? So we make order at this point, right? You're waiting for the time T. To this point, you run out. You don't have inventory at all. But you're getting the order Q to fulfill. And then inventory is gonna reach Q again. Okay. So in this case, since we assume that inventory and lead time known and constant, so there is no way that we're gonna have stock out, right? Because when you reach to this time, okay, you saw it empty, but you have Q to fill, right? At the same time, the level up to Q again, and it's reduce, you make order, waiting until T. Once you reach T, you empty and it's gonna feel equal to Q again. It's gonna rebound to be the level equal to Q again, right? So this is the concept of EOQ model. We want to find what is the quantity of this Q that make the total cost of inventory minimum. Okay, and in this case, if we look at the concept of total cost of inventory, the total cost inventory is, in this case I'm using from the textbook that I reference, so it's gonna take account of the cost of item to be the one part of the total cost as well. So total cost of inventory is combined of the ordering cost plus carrying cost and then plus the purchase cost that you pay for that part of that in items, right? But the purchase cost is constant for sure. Why constant? Because you have demand is known and constant. Right? If you have the assumption that demand is known and constant, for sure, if we measure in the length of annual term or 1 year, right? No matter what, how many order time that you make order, but finally, total of the inventory that you can order from that supplier will be equal, right? Every time. For example, let's say if you know that demand is constant, let's say that 2 units per day, 2 units per day, and 1 year, for each year you operate 250 days a year. So then the total demand for annual term is 2 multiplied 250, right? 500 units, right? No matter what that you make orders when, but finally total for that whole year, you get an order for 500 units. So it's constant, But we're gonna find out, okay, you're gonna make order how many of this, right? That equally, right, for each time, and make the total cost is minimum. So in this case, let's say, right, order cost and the carrying cost and also purchase cost. Okay, we're gonna show you here. This is a graph between cost and order quantities, right? For sure that if you have order quantities, the big term, let's say that, for example, based on the example that I just mentioned, for a year you need 500 units. If you order 250, you can make 2 orders a year, right? But 2 orders per year, right? But if you make 1 order, you can make 500, right? Or 500 units, so you can have just 1 order, right? If you make like 25 units, you're gonna order 10 orders, right? So if you have the order quantity very big, right, the ordering cost is quite getting decreased, right? Let's say 500 units that you need for every year. You order 500, you just 1 order. If you order 250, you make 2 orders. If you order 25, you make 10 orders, something like that. So the order is reduced, but it's not linear. But on the other hand, the carrying cost is going to increase. If you have too much or too big quantity of your order, you're going to store too much, right? You're going to have carrying cost increase, right? This is a carrying cost, and it's going to linear because the cost of carrying cost we define based on each unit, right? So then when you combine these 2 costs together, you can have the total cost, the red one, and the minimum level of the total cost is going to occur at the intersection between the ordering cost and the carrying cost. This one. And at this point, we call the optimal order quantity. It means that if we make an order equal to Q star, let's say we call this Q star. Every time that we make an order equal to Q star, we're gonna pay, right, total cost of inventory minimum. right? And the intersection between ordering cost and carrying cost actually is mean to carrying cost and ordering cost equally, right, at this point. So based on this, okay, let's see how can we finding the Q star or EOQ, equal order quantities. Let's say that we let Q star to be the optimal order quantity that we want to find from the EOQ models. The big D is the annual demand in unit, and we know for sure, right? Because we assume the demand constant, so we can know annual demand for sure, right? C sub O is the ordering cost per order, or the cost that you're gonna pay for each order. C sub H is about the carrying cost or holding cost per unit per year, right? We calculate based on per unit and per year. And P is about the purchase cost per unit or cost of item, right? So then, let's consider the concept of total cost equal to ordering cost plus carrying cost plus purchase cost. Let's assume that we consider the carrying cost or carrying cost. Since the EOQ models, we assume that lead time and demand both are known and constant. So carrying cost generally is come from the average inventory levels, right? And the average inventory levels is calculated by using maximum inventory level plus minimum inventory level and then divided by 2. So look at this graph, the minimum level of inventory that possible is equal to 0, right? And the maximum is going to be equal to Q, right? Or Q star, right? So then that's why when you find the average inventory, you're going to have 0 plus Q and all divided by 2, and then you have Q over 2. And let's say that this is about the average inventory. Then the total cost of carrying cost is going to use the average inventory multiply with the inventory carrying cost per unit. And normally the inventory carrying cost per unit can expressed in one of these two ways. The first one using like a fixed cost, for example, this is mean the cost of the value of C sub H, where the carrying cost or holding cost per unit per year is equal to $0.5, let's say, per year, per unit per year. Or it's going to calculate as a percentage of n item unit cost. For example, 20% of the item unit cost. Right? So C sub S is going to be the percentage multiplied with cost of purchasing or cost of item. And so in this case, the annual inventory carrying cost is C sub S that we can have two ways, depend on your calculation. You might use fixed cost or you can use the percentage from item cost. Right? But anyway, total carrying cost, we can use average inventory multiplied with carrying cost per unit per year. So this is the carrying cost. And how about the orderly cost? Orderly cost is about the cost that you make in orders, right? So we know that C sub O is about the ordering cost per order. So then we need to calculate how many orders that you're gonna make for a year. Since you know that the annual demand is equal to D, right? And every time that you make an order is equal to Q or Q star. So then the number of order just using D divided by Q, you can have the total number of order. And then you multiply with C sub O, you can have the total ordering cost, right? And for cost of purchase or cost of an item or cost of item, just simple. Since we consider everything as the annual term, let's say 1 year, you know that the annual demand is D, right? And cost per unit is P. So the total cost of purchase is using D multiplied with P, right? So then you can have this. So this is the total cost in general. That's come from the combination of ordering cost plus carrying cost plus purchase cost. But we try to find the level of Q that optimal that make the total inventory cost minimum. So then the way that they derive the formula and find the Q is just using the concept of calculus. They're gonna do like the differentiation this term total cost, right, by dq, by the quantities value. So finally, okay, we are not teaching you about the calculus. Finally, we can have the only one formula, right? That the order that very optimal, that if you make an order every time equal to Q star this from this formula, you can have the total cost minimum of inventory. Q star will then equal to the square root of 2D C sub O divided by C sub H. Right? So this is the formula of optimal order, economic order quantities of Q star or EOQ. If you order equal to this Q star calculation, you're gonna have the total inventory minimum. Okay. For example, in order to make you a better understanding, I have the example. Let's see the example one. We have a Sumco company. The company that buy the pump housing. Pump housing is just a part of the things of the equipment, right? Pump housing from a manufacturer and distribute to the retailers. Sumco would like to reduce its inventory cost by determining the optimal number of pump housings to obtain per orders. The annual demand is 1,000 units. The ordering cost is $10 per order, and the carrying cost is $0.5 per unit per year. Each pump housing has a purchase cost of $5. So we have 4 questions. The first question, number 1, how many housing should Sumco order each time? Number 2, calculating the total cost for Sumco. And number 3, calculating the average dollar value of inventory. And the last one, calculating the length of order cycle. So let's talk about the first question. How many housing or pump housing should the Sumco order each time? Based on all the information, we can list that of the variable just like this. Demand, annual demand is 1,000 is about D, right? Ordering cost per order is $10, so C sub O is $10 per order. Carrying cost is $0.5 per unit per year, so C sub H is $0.5 per unit per year. And purchase cost or cost of that pump housing is $5 or P. So then, if we substitute into the formula of EOQ model or finding Q star, so then we're going to have the square root of the 2D C sub O divided by C sub H, and based on the calculation, we have the 200 units, which means that the demand is 1,000 per year. If you make an order equal to 200 units every time, you're going to have the total inventory cost minimum, right? So 200 units, this means you're going to make order 5 times, right? For a year, 5 times. So if you order every time equal to 200, you're going to have the total cost minimum. But if you're using like the make order just, let's say 500 units, you make order just 2 times a year. The total cost when you calculate is more than the order 200 units. So 200 is quite the optimum of the order quantity that you should make an order for each time. And for the second question, if we try to calculate the total cost in this case, so then we're using the total ordering cost plus the total carrying cost plus the total purchase cost. So ordering cost, right, divided by Q, because the annual demand is 1,000. But every time that you make order, you order 200. So then you make order 5 times. But for each order, you have the cost $10. So that's why you're going to have 5 multiplied with 10. Carrying cost based on the average inventory using Q over 2. So then Q is 200 over 2. Your average is equal to 100, and then you multiply with C sub H is 0.5 per unit per year. And purchase cost, annual demand is 1,000. Cost for each pump housing is $5, so then you're using $5 multiplied with 1,000. Finally, you're going to have the total cost is $5,100. The third question is about the average dollar value of inventory. The average dollar value of inventory. So average dollar value of inventory is very simple by calculate using the average inventory level. We all know that the average inventory is Q over 2. So then Q is 200, and then we average by divided by 2, we have 100. And per 1 unit is cost $5, so then we multiply with 5. So on average, inventory have the value around $500. And the last one, length of order cycle, it means that how long it's gonna take to make an order again, right? We all know that demand per year is 1,000. Every time that you make order, you order 200 units. So if you're using Q over D, 200 divided by 1,000, you can have 0.2 over a year. So it means that every 2.5 months, you're going to make the orders. Right? Because 100 is from out of 1,000 units is about 0.2. 0.2 is from 1 year, right? So if you translate it into be month, so just multiply with 12 months. So it means that every 2.4 months you make an order, and you're gonna order 5 times. So that's why you're gonna have the 1,000 units per year, right? So this is a EOQ model. So in conclusion, based on the EOQ models, inventory is come from you order part, order the products, order those kind of thing from the supplier, right? Not come from your own production, right? And it have the concept that every time that you make order equally every time. In this case, it's called EOQ, right? So we're gonna have this with the first model that we're gonna study, right? And the second model, before we have a break, is about the reader point model. Just continue with the EOQ model, right? Let's say that this is the same figure of the graph that I'm showing you in the EOQ models. Okay, the x-axis is about the times, and the y-axis is about the inventory levels. The other point is about the level of inventory, that whenever you have inventory reach this point, you need to make orders, right? Or below this point, you need to make orders. For example, if your other point is about 20 units, it means that every time that your inventory level equal to 20 or below, you need to make an orders. And the little points, in this case, for this model that I currently explained you, it's about a simple one, that we have the concept same as an EOQ. In this case, that we know the demand and the lead time, and both are constant. So the concept of little point is very easy. Again, right? Let's say this is the level of little point. And then when your level of inventory is reduced based on your demand. When you reach to this point, you order, right? And then you waiting around equal to lead time. And then to this point, you getting your order, right? And the inventory going back. And then it's going to deal again. And then you order again. And then you get order again, something like that. So how can we know about the reader points? Lead point is very simple, right? It's this: if we have the assumption that both demand and lead time are constant and known, then the lead point is about using the demand multiplied with lead time. For example, let's say that you know about let's say that lead time you measure in the unit of day, and your demand is calculated by the unit per day. Okay, let's say that your demand is about 2 units per day. Your lead time is about 3 days. So then your leader point equal to 6 units. It means that every time that your leader point equal to 6 or below, you need to make an order. Why is 6 units? Because it comes from demand multiplied with lead time. Why we use this concept? Because, okay, demand is 2 units per day, right? When you reach this point, the other point, you make an order. And you're waiting 3 days before you getting that order. So it's been doing this 3 days. You need to have enough inventory for use. You're using 2 units per day and you're waiting for 3 days. So finally, you need at least 6 units before you getting the orders coming. So that's why the delivery point equal to 6 units. But this formula is based on the assumption that demand and lead time both known and constant. But if you have something that not constant, for example, lead time is not exactly 3 days, demand is not exactly 2 units per day, you might have the problem of stock out. So that's why you need to plus what we call steady stock. This one we're going to study next time. But for this formula, just the basic, just the beginning, it's using demand multiplied with lead time. So we show you more detail. Let's say that we're using the same example from the sample company, the example that we calculate for the EOQ model. Assume that their lead time equal to 3 business days between the time that sample placed and orders and the time this order is received. Also assume that there are 250 business days in a year. Calculate that the reader point. Based on the example 1, we all know that the annual demand is 1,000 units, right? 1,000 units, but you operate 250 business days. So then you're using 1,000 divided by 250 units, you're going to have the daily demand, right? Right? In this case, daily demand is equal to 4 units. But the lead time is 3 business days. So then you multiply daily demand with the lead time. 4 multiplied with 3, then you have 12 units. So it means that in this case, the reader point for this case is equal to 12 units. Or every time that the level of inventory of pump housing equal to 12 units or below, you need to make the orders. But don't forget, this is come from the concept of demand and lead time, both unknown and constant. But if it's not, you need to have safety stock. That would be difficult. We're going to study next time. Okay, so this is the first 2 models, right? EOQ and data point. Okay, we're going to have a break right now, right? And once you come back from break, we're going to continue with the next model. Is called EPQ model or economic production quantity model. Okay, let's have a break.